There exists a certain vegetable, so prized and so imperiled by its sheer deliciousness, that in certain locales its harvesting is considered a criminal offense. This legal safeguarding, however, is not due to any inherent toxicity or invasive nature of the plant. Rather, it stems from our near annihilation of this particular vegetable over a span of 300 years. It was, in essence, the inaugural gourmet vegetable, gracing the tables of history's most influential figures, including the very architects of the United States. Yet, a visit to your local supermarket today would yield no such specimen. The reason? This plant spurns the fundamental tenets of contemporary agriculture. It resists mechanization, necessitates darkness to achieve peak sweetness, and demands the gentle touch of human hands for its collection. We opted for a bland, generic green stalk, conveniently stackable in crates, over a nutritional powerhouse that flourished in saltwater. This is the narrative of sea kale, botanically identified as Crambe maritima, the coastal treasure rendered forbidden, and the industrial expediency that absconded with it from our culinary repertoire. To fully grasp the immensity of our loss, our investigation need not venture far. A mere glimpse into Thomas Jefferson's garden suffices. In the year 1809, Jefferson meticulously documented the planting of sea kale at his Monticello estate in Virginia. He treated it not as a commonplace cabbage, but as a rare commodity. He employed specialized methods to blanch its shoots, meticulously recreating the challenging coastal conditions to cultivate an exceptional yield. He considered it among the most exquisite vegetables a garden could offer. Meanwhile, as Jefferson tended his plants with such care in Virginia, a far more tumultuous scene was unfolding across the Atlantic in Great Britain. This was the zenith of the Regency period, and sea kale had ascended to become the ultimate emblem of status for the British aristocracy. This trend was significantly propelled by the Prince Regent himself, later King George IV, who featured it prominently at his opulent banquets held at the Royal Pavilion in Brighton. Once the monarch embraced it, the entire ruling elite felt compelled to partake. In the bustling environs of London's Covent Garden Market, bundles of blanched sea kale shoots commanded prices rivaling those of imported exotic fruits. This insatiable demand ignited a wave of botanical criminality. Sea kale grows abundantly along the gravelly shores of the southern coast, presenting itself as readily available bounty. While dedicated kale yards were established for its legal cultivation, their output could not satisfy the rampant demand. Consequently, the local populace turned to the wild. Under the cloak of night, poachers would descend upon the beaches of Sussex and Hampshire, not merely to pluck a few stalks, but to excavate the substantial, ancient root crowns that had persisted there for decades. They would drive carts and wagons directly onto the sand, denuding entire coastlines in a single night, ferrying the roots off to London. It was, in essence, a vegetable gold rush. The devastation was so comprehensive that the British government was ultimately compelled to intervene to prevent its complete eradication. Today, under the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981, wild sea kale is designated a protected species within its native habitat. So what precisely renders this plant worthy of risking a criminal record? The answer lies in its inherent biology. Sea kale is a halophyte, a rare classification of flora capable of tolerating and indeed thriving in environments with high salinity. The vast majority of our contemporary crops, such as corn, wheat, soy, and lettuce, are glycophytes. If you were to irrigate them with salt water, they would perish almost instantaneously, their cellular structures collapsing. To surmount this challenge, sea kale developed an extensive and fleshy taproot system that penetrates deep into the sand in search of fresh water and essential minerals. Due to its perpetual exposure to saline stress, the plant synthesizes potent antioxidant compounds to safeguard its own cells. When consumed, these protective compounds are assimilated by the body. Let us examine the quantitative data. The modern orange is marketed as the preeminent source of vitamin C. A typical commercial orange provides approximately 53 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, or about 3.5 ounces. Sea kale shoots utterly eclipse this figure. Analyses reveal they contain roughly 130 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, nearly 2.5 times the vitamin C content of an orange. Furthermore, it is crucial to remember that this plant is ready for harvest in the late winter and early spring, precisely when human populations historically required the most immune support. But its nutritional advantages extend beyond vitamins. Sea kale belongs to the Brassica family, a relative of broccoli and kale, and is richly endowed with glucosinolates, particularly a compound known as glucoraphanin. Upon mastication, an enzymatic reaction transforms this compound into sulforaphane, a potent molecule extensively studied for its capacity to identify and neutralize cancerous cells. Standard commercial broccoli typically contains an average of 50 to 60 milligrams of glucosinolates per 100 grams, often diluted by the rapid growth encouraged by extensive irrigation. Sea kale, cultivated under the environmental pressures of the coast, delivers a far more substantial benefit, with concentrations frequently exceeding 100 milligrams per 100 grams. We are discussing a doubled defensive capability compared to the typical supermarket alternative. As an added bonus, it offers a flavor profile reminiscent of hazelnuts and cream. If sea kale surpasses other vegetables in nutrition, taste, and historical significance, why then has it vanished from American gardens? Why do we now consume flavorless, watery asparagus instead? The culprit in this saga is the concept of forced cultivation. In its natural state, sea kale undergoes blanching thanks to the shifting sands of the shoreline. The spring winds bury the emerging crowns with sand, effectively blocking sunlight. The plant then pushes its way upwards through this darkness, and because it cannot photosynthesize without light, its stalks remain a pearly white, tender, and remarkably sweet. Exposure to direct sunlight would render them green, tough, and bitter. To replicate this phenomenon in a garden setting, Victorians and early Americans devised intricate terracotta vessels known as sea kale pots. They would carefully place these heavy clay domes over each individual plant in the early spring. This was a process demanding significant dedication. However, for the industrial food system that emerged in the 20th century, this presented an insurmountable logistical challenge. One cannot automate the placement of 10,000 ceramic pots, nor can a combine harvester navigate a field adorned with these domes. The prevailing agricultural model relies on uniformity and speed. A vegetable that requires being covered and shielded from the sun represents an excessive investment in labor hours. Sea kale was abandoned due to its inefficiency. We prioritized the speed of harvesting over the quality of the crop. A second impediment further sealed its fate: shelf life. Sea kale is a vegetable best enjoyed immediately. Once a crisp white shoot is severed, a chemical clock begins ticking. Within mere hours, its sugars start converting to starch. Within a few days, its crispness dissipates, giving way to a rubbery texture. The contemporary global supply chain is fundamentally structured around the cold chain, the capacity to harvest a vegetable in one region, transport it via refrigerated trucks over extended periods. Sea kale obstinately refuses to conform to this system. It bruises easily, its flavor diminishes rapidly, and it presents an unappealing appearance when encased in plastic packaging. It is an honest vegetable, incapable of concealing its age. Because it could not withstand the arduous journey across the country, grocery retailers deemed it unworthy of stocking. However, what renders sea kale a commercial failure makes it a triumph for the home gardener. Sea kale is a perennial. Unlike annual vegetables that necessitate replanting each spring, sea kale, once planted, will yield produce for as long as 20 years. It is a steadfast provider. Moreover, it is one of the most aesthetically pleasing plants one can cultivate. It produces luxuriant, wavy, blue-green leaves that bear a striking resemblance to coral. During the summer months, it bursts forth with clouds of honeysuckle-scented white flowers, drawing pollinators from considerable distances. It is an edible ornamental that integrates seamlessly into a flower border as effectively as it does into a vegetable patch. For the permaculture designer, it serves as a valuable tool. Its deep taproots stabilize loose, sandy soils where other plants falter. Once established, it exhibits remarkable drought tolerance. If you reside in a coastal area or possess infertile, sandy soil where your tomato plants struggle, sea kale will flourish, and its harvest is remarkably versatile. In the spring, you can enjoy the blanched shoots. In the summer, the younger green leaves can be prepared much like kale or collard greens. In the late summer, its broccoli-like florets are also edible. This single, exceptionally resilient plant offers three distinct vegetables. For the past century, we have waged a war against nature, attempting to force vast monocultures of water-dependent, fragile crops into environments ill-suited for them. Sea kale presents an alternative approach. It invites us to cease our struggle and embrace what the earth genuinely wishes to produce. By cultivating this plant, you connect with a lineage that spans from the historic gardens of Monticello to the untamed coastal fringes of the world. You reclaim a flavor profile that was deemed too demanding for the modern era to accommodate. However, a word of caution. You will not find these seeds at your average hardware store. To acquire them, you must seek out specialized heirloom seed providers, such as the Thomas Jefferson Center for Historic Plants, or rare seed catalogs like Baker Creek. While it is a halophyte that appreciates salt, you need not salt your garden. It simply requires excellent drainage. Provide it with sand and sunshine, and it will offer a lifetime of sustenance. Locate a sandy patch in your garden, procure some seeds, and plant the vegetable that was once deemed too perilous to harvest. We have further forgotten harvests awaiting discovery, and the most effective method to challenge the prevailing system is to cultivate your own. I will see you in the garden.